The past often shines with a soft, golden hue in the rearview mirror of memory. We look back with longing, filtering out the pain and magnifying the joys, creating a tapestry that is more myth than memory. It's tempting to romanticize what once was, to believe that the world was simpler, people were kinder, and life was somehow better. But this is a comforting illusion, one that can prevent us from engaging fully with the present or imagining a better future. Nostalgia is a powerful emotion. It can make us feel connected to our roots and give us a sense of continuity. However, it can also distort reality. When we say, things were better back then, we often speak from a place of selective memory. We recall the warmth of family gatherings, the excitement of youth, the charm of a less digital world. Yet we forget, or conveniently overlook, the challenges, injustices, and limitations that were also part of those times. Every era has its own struggles. The so-called good old days were good for some but not for all. In many societies, the past was marked by systemic inequalities, limited rights for women and minorities, and a lack of technological, medical, and social advancements. Romanticizing those times can be harmful, as it glosses over these harsh realities and can even be used to justify regressive policies or social attitudes. There is also a danger in comparing the present unfavorably to an idealized past. When we do this, we risk falling into pessimism and inaction. We might say, things will never be as good as they once were, and in doing so, we rob ourselves of hope. We ignore the immense progress humanity has made, the eradication of diseases, the expansion of rights and freedoms, the breakthroughs in science and communication. The present is far from perfect, but it is filled with potential. The future holds possibilities we can scarcely imagine. Clinging to a distorted vision of the past keeps us from seeing that. Moreover, the past is not a static museum piece, it's a dynamic story of change and adaptation. Societies evolve, technologies advance, and cultural norms shift. Holding onto an idealized past can hinder this evolution. It can breed resistance to change, making us fear the unknown rather than embrace it. It can cause us to idolize outdated models of living, working, and relating to others, even when they no longer serve us well. Our memories are stories we tell ourselves, and like all stories, they are shaped by perspective. We tend to remember emotionally significant moments, and our brains naturally reconstruct memories with a bias toward coherence and meaning. That means we often smooth out the rough edges, omit the unpleasant details, and focus on what makes us feel good. This isn't inherently wrong, it's part of how we make sense of our lives. But it becomes problematic when we treat those reconstructed memories as objective truth. The cultural obsession with the past is evident in many aspects of society. The revival of vintage fashion, the popularity of retro music, the remakes of classic films and TV shows. While there's nothing wrong with appreciating the aesthetics or artistry of the past, problems arise when this nostalgia becomes a refusal to innovate or engage with the challenges of the present. Creativity thrives not in repetition, but in evolution. We should learn from the past, not live in it. The lessons of history are invaluable, but they are tools for building the future, not blueprints for returning to a bygone era. Reflection is useful, but reverence can be a trap. The world has changed, and so have we. To pretend otherwise is to deny the complexity and richness of human experience. Instead of romanticizing the past, we should cultivate a mindful appreciation of the present. What are the unique opportunities of our time? What injustices must we address now, instead of wishing them away with nostalgia? What possibilities lie ahead if we dare to dream beyond what has already been? Looking backward can sometimes help us move forward, but only if we do so with clear eyes and an honest heart. Sentimentality has its place, but so does critical thought. The stories of the past are valuable, not because they were perfect, but because they were real. And the real power lies in our ability to write new stories, stories that reflect our growth, our struggles, and our relentless pursuit of something better. Ultimately, the past should inform, not define us. It should inspire us, not imprison us. Our greatest potential lies not behind us, but in the present moment and the future we are capable of shaping. To romanticize the past is to give up on that potential, and that is something we can no longer afford to do. Only when we stop idealizing what was, can we truly focus on what could be. There's a moment, sometime after the ending, when you sit with your phone in your hand, waiting. You stare at a message thread that hasn't lit up in days, maybe weeks. You scroll through old words, reading them as though they might suddenly reveal some secret truth. You replay every conversation, every argument, every silence, hoping to unearth the moment it all slipped out of your grasp. And then the thought begins to press against your ribs like a weight. If he could just explain it, if he could give you that one final answer, you'd finally be able to breathe again. That thought, seductive as it is a trap. And the hardest lesson, the one that no one really prepares you for, is that sometimes closure doesn't come wrapped up in words from the person who hurt you. Sometimes closure isn't delivered in a heartfelt apology, or a text that says, "I was wrong," or a phone call filled with explanations and clarity. Sometimes closure is something you have to give yourself. And learning to accept it is a kind of quiet strength, one that's built in the aching silence you left behind. You want answers. Of course you do. You want to know if it ever meant anything to him. You want to know why he pulled away, why he changed, why he stopped trying. You want to know if it was you, if you were too much or not enough. You want him to say it wasn't your fault. You want him to see your pain and acknowledge it. That's human. It's natural to crave validation from the source of our wounds. But chasing that need down into the ruins of what used to be only prolongs the suffering. It ties you to a version of yourself who is still standing at the edge of the ending, begging for it to make sense. But he may never give you that. He may never admit what he did. He may never apologize in the way you want him to. He may never own the way he handled your heart. And even if he does offer words, they might not soothe you. They might twist the knife instead. They might be half-truths or excuses or things that still leave you with more questions than peace. Closure that comes from someone else is a gamble, and often a disappointing one. Sometimes the truth is that he doesn't have the words. Sometimes he doesn't even know why he left or why he lost interest. Sometimes he's not thinking about it as deeply as you are. And that's a bitter pill to swallow, that the person who wrecked you might not be tormented by the wreckage. But healing begins when you stop trying to make sense of it through him. When you stop thinking that peace is something he has to hand you. Because it's not. You are allowed to feel every ounce of your grief. You're allowed to miss him. You're allowed to be angry, confused, broken. You don't have to pretend you're okay just to prove a point. But what you don't have to do anymore is wait for him to say the right thing in order for you to let go. You don't have to keep reopening the wound, hoping it'll finally heal differently if you just understand it better. Pain doesn't dissolve through understanding, it dissolves through acceptance. Acceptance is the hardest form of love we'll ever give ourselves. It says, even though I didn't get the apology I deserve peace. It says, even though he didn't explain himself, I can still choose to move forward. It says, even though it ended without clarity, I can still create meaning from it. It's not about pretending it didn't matter. It did. What you shared was real. The way you loved him was real. Your heartbreak is real. But not everything that matters gets a neat ending. Not every chapter comes with a closing paragraph. Some people just leave. Some people stop trying. Some people walk away from beautiful things because they don't know how to hold them. That's not your fault, and you don't have to stay stuck in the memory just because he couldn't carry it with you. You learn, slowly, to stop giving his silence more power than it deserves. You stop reading his last message over and over, hoping to find a hidden meaning. You resist the urge to reach out one more time, thinking maybe this time he'll give you what you need. Because what you need now is not another conversation with him. It's a conversation with yourself. It's you, telling yourself the truth. That you loved, that you lost, and that you're still here. Still worthy, still whole, even with a scar. Letting go is not weakness. It's not giving up. It's choosing yourself. It's choosing to stop waiting for him to come back and fix what he broke. And that doesn't mean you'll stop missing him overnight. It doesn't mean you won't have moments where the grief chokes you out of nowhere. But it means you won't let those moments define you. You won't let his inability to give you closure keep you from healing. It's not about pretending you don't care anymore. It's about choosing not to chase someone who already showed you they weren't willing to stay. And that's one of the bravest things you'll ever do. Sometimes closure looks like sitting with your pain instead of running from it. It looks like writing a letter you'll never send. It looks like deleting the message thread and mourning the end, even when it still hurts. It looks like waking up one morning and realizing you didn't think about him first. It looks like taking the long way home so you don't pass by the places that used to be yours. It looks like reclaiming your life, piece by piece, even as your heart still aches. It's not clean, it's not quick, but it's real, and it's yours. There's power in deciding that you don't need someone else's words to validate your experience. There's freedom in saying, I believe myself. I trust my memory. I honor my emotions. Because the truth is, you lived it. You were there. You know how it felt. You know what you gave. And that's enough. You don't need him to tell you it mattered. You don't need him to tell you he regrets it. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But your healing doesn't have to hinge on that unknown. You get to heal anyway. You get to stop rehearsing what you'd say if you saw him again. You get to stop wondering if he thinks about you late at night. You get to stop building closure in your mind based on conversations that will never happen. You get to choose the quiet. You get to choose your own peace. Some nights, you'll still ache. Some days, you'll still catch your breath when you see something that reminds you of him. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're not healing. That doesn't mean you're not strong. Grief is not a straight line. It's a spiral. But every time you come back around, you'll find you're standing a little taller. Breathing a little easier. Needing him a little less. You start to remember who you were before the pain. Or maybe you don't remember her, because she's gone now. But you begin to meet the person you're becoming, the one forged in the fire, the one who learned how to survive heartbreak without answers. And she's softer, but stronger. She feels deeply, but she holds herself more carefully. She walks with wisdom now. She knows the value of her love, and she's no longer interested in giving it to someone who won't hold it gently. That's the real closure. Not the kind that comes from him saying the right thing, but the kind that comes from you deciding not to wait for it anymore. From you reclaiming your story and choosing not to let someone else write the ending. So if you're still holding your phone, still hoping for one last message that will finally explain it all, put it down. Look at yourself in the mirror. See the girl who gave her all, who loved without holding back, who is now learning to let go without having every question answered. That's strength. That's beauty. That's closure. It won't always feel this heavy. The ache will fade, slowly, like the tide retreating from the shore. You'll carry pieces of it with you, but it won't define you. You'll grow around it, and one day, you'll look back and realize that the closure you were waiting for never came from him. It came from the day you decided you didn't need it.